everyone. So today is recipe day, and since I kind of teased you already with a gut healing broth that I make, I'm going to show you how to do so. So I'm going to just, I think it would just be easier if I just went through the process that I go through for it, and then I'll just show you each project or each product, as we go. So, so buckle in, and I hope that you enjoy this as much as I do. And I'll talk about it, the purpose and, why I make it and why it's super healthy for you as I go. I just don't want to take too much time up in the beginning and then all of a sudden, show you everything later. So, to begin with, so this gut healing broth is all homemade, which is fantastic. I usually start with, for some reason, I usually start with like powdered stuff or all of my dry stuff right away. So I'll put that into my pot. And now the pot that I use is just a big old pot, right? I have some garlic in there already. I was chopping up. But, so you just use that pot, and you just need one pot. You don't need to like pre-make anything else or anything like that. So I'm going to put some of my spices in there, and I'll show you what they are. The spices are very much optional, and you can completely play around with them. These are just the most basic or the most general forms of some of the herbs and spices that I use. So I use basil, and I don't, like I said in my last video, I'm a terrible measurer, so you might want to actually measure this out yourself. I just eyeball it. If you like more basil-y kind of flavorings, then obviously add more basil. But I just kind of, here, I'll just show you. So I just go in there and eyeball it up, and I'm like, okay, that's good enough. And I'll do that with all of them too. But if I were to estimate how much of each spice I put in, I would have to say it's about anywhere between a teaspoon to half of a tablespoon. That would be the range that I definitely play with. So basil, marjoram, some other herbs. So a lot of these are going to be herbs more than anything. And that's just because herbs have a lot more beneficial properties in them. And they just have like wonderful flavorings in it, right? You can also use fresh herbs, which I do have one fresh herb that I had left over sitting in my fridge, and that I was like, oh, perfect, I can use it for this instance. So then I'll throw a little bit of this in there, and this is oregano. All right. And then the last one that I'm going to throw in there is thyme, and I don't have a whole lot of it left. No pun intended. So I'm just going to throw whatever, I got left. But just beware that thyme is very pungent. It's got a very pungent flavor to it, so if you overdo it, you'll notice. Next one I do is peppercorns, so just regular pepper. I usually I don't count out each individual one, but I do just like a handful of them, right? It really just kind of depends on you. And peppercorns are amazing, especially for anxiety. So it's been like told that if you like smell them and you're having like a panic attack or an anxiety attack, that it can actually help calm your nerves down. So that's kind of cool. Plus, also, as another little tidbit, peppercorn is also a very symbiotic spice with turmeric. So if you are taking turmeric or curcumin, they work very well together. The peppercorn actually allows your body to absorb all of the turmeric in all of its beneficial ways. So just a little tidbit. And then the last two spices, or really I guess one of the last three spices I use is cayenne and a chili red pepper crushed flakes. I do this instead of chilies, like a fresh chili, which you can most certainly do if that's like up to you. I just find it easier because we have a bunch of cayenne powder and a bunch of red pepper flakes that it's just easier for me. But if you definitely want, the freshness of a chili pepper, then, obviously go for that. It's going to do the same thing. So what it does is it helps with, flavoring first, and then chili peppers have really good, like, anti-inflammatory, and they're very high in, like, antioxidants also, and then the capsaicin, or the thing that actually makes it hot, has a lot of properties in it as well. And it can really help with your digestion as well. I know that it can seem like contradictory because a lot of times people are like, oh, I get indigestion from it. And it's not necessarily always from the spice, but it could also be because your digestive system is out of balance. And so you're not able to actually properly digest and metabolize everything that's going on within the spiciness. Just a tidbit. So cayenne. I have the cayenne powder. You do not need a lot of it because cayenne powder can be extremely hot. So it really depends on your level of spiciness that you can take. Now, over the years, I've definitely grown much more accustomed to spice, so I can take a little heat. But if you can't, then obviously don't put as much in there. I would even, if at this point, I might measure it out if you're really sensitive to heat or to hotness. So if that were the case, I really wouldn't do anything more than even an eighth of a teaspoon would be more than enough, especially because you're putting other, the peppercorn, and then we're going to put ginger and turmeric. That can also give it a spice to it, so you don't want to overkill it. So we're going to put a little bit in. So that was the cayenne again. And then the crushed red pepper flakes as well. I just like to use both because, I don't know, I feel like they have different flavorings. But you definitely do not have to use both by any means. Okay, and then the very last, powdered item, the last powdered item is, and this is completely optional, but it's just really awesome because it's got lots of nutritional benefits in it, plus it just has an amazing flavor. This is by far one of my most favorite and heavily used spices, so to speak, that I use. It's almost like on everything. It's almost in and on everything that I cook. And that is nutritional yeast. Love it. So this container is a little old, but we buy it in bulk, and you can buy it in bulk from, Whole Foods, any co-op that's near you. Otherwise, you can just buy the Bragg's brand container. And I've seen that everywhere. The stores that are here are not going to be the same as where you're at, but they're pretty much everywhere now, so that's pretty awesome. Plus, if you get the correct one, because there are some nutritional yeast out there that aren't made with B12 or all your B vitamins, but if you get a very good source, so I would highly recommend the Bragg brand, or if you get it in bulk, make sure that you maybe talk with the store owner and ask where they source it from, because there can be some nutritional yeast that doesn't have all the B vitamins in it, which is sort of lame, but that's pretty much the whole reason behind it, especially being vegetarian, vegan. Everybody's always up in arms about, B12 and, B12 this and B12 that, which that's a whole nother story for a whole nother day. Maybe I'll do a video on that as well. But nutritional yeast can have all of your B vitamins, and it has all the B vitamins in it if you get the right kind. It has to be the rightly sourced one. So I use this because I absolutely love the flavoring. It's got a cheesy, nutty flavor. It's very, yeah, it's very creamy. Like it can get very creamy. And it's, yeah, just nutty is like how I would describe it. So I like the flavor of it, especially if you are someone who likes more of a cheesier flavor. This is definitely your best bet. So I'm just sprinkle a little bit in there because I like it so much. I probably put like a tablespoon to 2 tablespoons of it. You don't have to put that much in there if you don't want. You could just throw a little sprinkle, and that could be more than fine. Okay, so that is all of the spices. And like I said, you can use any other spice that you want. So if you got cumin, if you want to throw some cumin in there, chili powder, there's another herb that you have, maybe it's like lemon balm or something that you're like, ooh, I kind of have some extra. That would definitely be highly recommended. So the whole spices aspect of it is really up to you. It's whatever you like to cook with or that you normally cook with. And if you're not sure because you don't normally cook with things, or you're kind of like brand new to the whole cooking scene, then use what I've like already described. So that was basil, marjoram, oregano, thyme, and then nutritional yeast, peppercorn, so the peppercorn chunks. And then if you do not want to use like actual chili peppers, then use cayenne and or crushed red pepper. Okay? All right. So then the next one is parsley, and this is the one that I said that I had some left over in the fridge, and so this is why I absolutely love making my own broth, and this is why I do not buy store-bought broth anymore. It's been almost about a year now, and I've not bought it because you are able to use all of the scraps that you haven't used all week, or maybe you only needed a little bit. Because that's what I hate. So they give you, when you buy like parsley in the store, it usually comes in like this big gigantic like bundle, and most recipes don't ever call for like this entire bundle, right? Like that's a lot. So then you usually take just little chunks of it, and then you use it in your recipe, and then you've got all of this left over, and you're like, what am I going to do with this? That's such a waste. So that's kind of what got me into, researching, making my own broth, because I was like, well, maybe I could, do something with this. And lo and behold, yes, like I can make up my own broth. So if you have, like rosemary, or if you have like fresh herbs that you were using, definitely feel more than free to throw that in there as well. So I am just going to chop this up real quick. And because this is a broth and you're not actually going to be eating any of the chunked like produce, it does not matter how you cut it. You do not have to cut it pretty, and it does not have to look nice by any means. You just want it to be chopped enough that it's going to at least fit into your bowl, right? Because we're kind of throwing a lot in there. And it will all boil down, don't get me wrong, but you don't want it to boil over way too quickly. Okay? Alright. I'm going to throw that in there. So, obviously, depending upon, if you have extra herbs and spices, or extra just produce in general that you want to put into this, it can change and it can vary as far as the flavor of every broth that you make. Unless you just only want to make one very specific broth, don't ever put anything extra in it, which you're more than happy to do so. I just don't like to do it that way, only because I like to use up all of my food scraps. I don't like to be wasteful that way, so mine usually varies from time to time, but you want to have some staples in it to at least put in it every single time, so there is some sort of similarity or commonality between all of your broths. So just like a little side note, just in case if you're somebody who's like, I really need to have consistency. That would definitely be it, is that you want to actually be like, nope, I'm only going to, only put those fresh or those dried herbs, and I'm only going to put everything else, but you don't have to do, the extra, like, fresh parsley. Like, that's something that I wouldn't normally put in there unless I had it. Right? Okay. So, boom. We got all of our yumminess in there. The next thing we're going to put in there is turmeric. So, fresh turmeric root. I strongly advise to get the fresh turmeric root, only because you're going to get more of a beneficial property from it. You know, all of it's strong anti-inflammatory. That's what turmeric is amazing at, which is really awesome when you're talking about gut healing, because a lot of times you have a lot of inflammation going on in your gut because the imbalance is causing, you know, all of your cells to kind of like freak out and be like, oh my God, like there's something wrong. And like your body's first normal reaction is to always have some form of inflammation, because inflammation is also your body's way of attempting to heal itself. It's not always good at it if it, you know, isn't given the correct methods to do so. So it's try. So inflammation sometimes is your body trying to heal itself. It's healing itself in the wrong way. So that's why you have to take control of it. Sorry, got a little hot in here. All right. So like I said, remember, you do not have to cut everything up so perfectly. It does not have to look beautiful. You just want it to be small enough that everything is going to actually fit. So this is, here, I'll show you. This is what a turmeric, oh, it smells so good too. That's what turmeric looks like on the inside from a fresh root. It's very orange and it stains everything. If you've ever actually cooked with turmeric powder, it's actually more yellow. And if you ever have a soup, that has turmeric in it, and you leave it in a container overnight, and you go and you dump it out and you try to wash it, it's going to be completely dyed yellow, and it might be like that permanently, or it just might take a while to actually get all of that natural dye out, because that's exactly what it is. It's just a natural dye. Okay, so get your turmeric in there, and like I said, the turmeric is in there for its anti-inflammatory properties. It's also got obviously other benefits, but the major one that you need to know about, or that you would really be like, oh yeah, that's cool, is the anti-inflammatory. And then we have ginger. So now we have our ginger root. Same as this again. I would highly recommend getting fresh ginger root and putting it in there. Now, as far as the sizes of the turmeric and the ginger, it really, once again, it's going to boil down to your taste and your preference. Also, your cost. Turmeric root can be pretty pricey. So you just need, what I showed you is only this big. You don't need a whole lot of it. A little bit goes a long way with turmeric and ginger for sure. Ginger, on the other hand, is not as expensive. So it's a lot more affordable in that sort of a way. So I would definitely, use this not just in your broth, but I love to make a ginger turmeric or a ginger lemon tea, a fresh one. So that's just another way that you can use it. But the ginger, I usually like to do the turmeric and the ginger about the same size. So you don't want to have too much of the ginger and too much of the turmeric. All right, let's put that in there. Okay, so you got ginger and turmeric in there. Remember, you want to get it fresh if possible. If it's not possible to get it fresh, then get it in the powdered form, or the herb or spiced form is more than okay as well. Okay, then garlic. So I only have 2 left because, like I said, I was chopping them up before because I didn't want to take too much time chopping in front of you. So you're welcome. But as far as how much garlic is, you are going to want to put an entire bulb of garlic, or at least half of the bulb. And it's really, that is really going to depend upon, your level of likeness of garlic. Now, I love garlic, but also mind you that when you're going to use the garlic, it's also something else that could potentially make it a little bit spicy. So you're just gonna chop it. Like I said, with anything, it really doesn't matter how you chop it. It can look ugly. Like, I promise you, nobody's gonna actually care. Because what's gonna happen at the end of this is that you are going, after it's boiled, when it reduced down and got all of the, yummy nutrients out, you are then going to squeeze it out. You're gonna squeeze, get all the leftover juices, and then you're just gonna be left with the broth. Okay, awesome. So now you got the garlic in there. And then, of course, what's garlic without its lovely companion, onion. You can use any onion you want as well. You can use the yellow, you can use white. You can even use leeks if that's something that you want. Leeks are really awesome. But I would definitely use an onion. And the whole onion. So you can even use the bottom. That's more than okay, because all of the skin part of it, the skin of onion actually has way more nutrient in it than the actual inside of an onion. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. So anytime that I use onion, and you usually cut the bottom off, and you take the outer wrapping of it, I always put it into my freezer bags of my food scraps, and then it's always going to go into a broth anyways. So just throw it right in there. So then let's talk about that real quick as I'm cutting up the onion. So the last part is these freezer bags full of scraps. So that's going to be the primary, like the biggest chunk of this broth is going to be these food scraps. Now, the food scraps can be anything and everything, really, outside of a few that I have tried that I've noticed that are just yucky. And that would be beets. Beets just give it usually becomes way too bitter. If you have dandelion greens, that's way too bitter. So pretty much any produce that is seen as being very bitter or really sweet, you don't want that to go in there, because it will completely take over your flavor profile of the broth, and it will just ruin it. And trust me, I have done that before, so heed from my mistake that there. And then after you do that, and you're like, oh my gosh, this tastes terrible, I don't want to waste this all of this broth, how can I make this better? There's no making it better. You usually make it worse. At least that was definitely my experience with it. So yeah. But anything else, carrots, the end of carrots, or if you're almost you realize that your carrots are kind of going bad, and you're like, oh well, I don't really want to cook something fresh with this, so I'm going to throw the rest of my carrots into the freezer bag, and freeze it and save it for my food scraps. The end of celeries, peppers, potatoes, zucchini, the end of leeks, when you're cutting leeks, and you're cutting the bottom half and then the top half where all the green, the real green part of the leek. Usually a lot of recipes don't call for just that. So you can put that in there. Really, like I said, anything and everything outside of the things that are going to be kind of bitter and sweet. So no fruit. This is all vegetable scraps. No fruit. Okay, so now you got your onion in there. Okay, the next thing is mushrooms. Now you can use any mushroom you really want. If you really want an amazing, beneficial health profile, go for the medicinal mushrooms. And that would be, your reishi, your lion's mane, chaga. I know there's another one turkey tail. Those things are very awesome, but they can be very pricey. So if you have it in your budget to get those, then do it. I typically don't. So I just get cremini. And cremini is not any less than. It just doesn't have as high of the properties. And mushrooms are amazing. They have anti-cancer properties in them. Yeah, it's crazy. They've done studies on mushrooms with their anti-cancer properties, and it's really awesome. Or you can use shiitake. Shiitake is also another one, but shiitake is usually a little bit more expensive. I just buy cremini, honestly, for cost purposes, because buying mushrooms can be really expensive for some reason. So I just don't, buy the other stuff. Okay. So, like I said, when you're cutting things, it really doesn't matter. You could just chop it into little pieces, whatever's gonna get you there faster. So that's what I'm gonna start doing, because remember, you're not gonna actually drink or eat or do anything with these. Okay, so for the sake of purpose and time, I'm not going to throw all of my mushrooms in there right now. I'm not going to chop them all up. I should have done that before. My apologies. But you would throw all your mushrooms. And I usually use about maybe 7 to 9 pieces, or 7 to 9 mushrooms. You could do way more than that if you want, more of the mushroomy kind of flavor, or you could do less if you really don't like, the mushroom flavor. Completely up to you. Completely up to you. Okay. So now we only have 4 things really left, like crazy. Coconut oil. You're gonna put coconut oil in it. And you're just gonna take a spoon, so it's gonna be maybe like a tablespoon, and you're just gonna throw it right in there. And this gives it a little bit of fat, which helps with those minerals, those vitamins and minerals that are fat soluble. Plus, coconut oil is just great. There's so many benefits for it. I use it all the time. Lo and behold, I use it on my face too. So, just a little tidbit. So you're going to put the coconut oil in there. And then liquid aminos. This is totally an optional one, and you can also get coconut aminos. I don't have coconut aminos, only because I prefer to cook with the liquid aminos. Or if you have if you have a soy sensitivity or an allergen, then you would have to get the coconut amino. And I get this because you get aminos from them, right? So amino acids, which are the building block. Well, protein is the building block, but aminos are the building block to protein. That's what protein is essentially, is amino acids. So I put anywhere between a tablespoon to 2 tablespoons. This also will give it a little bit of the sodium flavor, so you also have to be careful. You don't want to put too much in there. So if I were starting out with you, I would only do anywhere between a half a tablespoon to a tablespoon. And like I said, I do not measure, remember, so I just kind of sprinkle it in there, and I just eyeball it, and I just know how much I usually use. Okay, so now you have your liquid amino in there. And then the very last thing is those food scraps that I was talking about. So I keep them in a bag, and I just keep filling them up, throughout the week. Anytime I got the ends of things, or the butts of, all of your vegetables, or the shavings of carrots, or anything like that, they're going to go into your freezer bag, and then they're going to be used in your broth, okay? So you're just going to take one of the bags, or if you notice that one of your bags has a lot of one particular food item, and you're I don't want everything to be in there, you can then pick and choose, from multiple bags, and totally make it your own. I just find it easier to just take one bag and throw it in. So you're gonna throw it in there. Okay, now it's going to be kind of overflowing at first, and this is okay, and I will show you what I mean. Right? And that's okay, because as soon as it gets the water on it, and then it gets hot, it's going to completely reduce down. And even if you notice that once it starts to reduce, and you're I would like to throw a little bit more scraps into there, the veggie scraps in there, then obviously, feel free to do that. You just don't want to put too much into the one pot, and then it's got no room to actually like boil and bubble to actually be able to reduce everything down. So you don't want to stuff it with too much stuff, but you also want to get enough in there that you're going to get all of the benefits, right? All of the healthy, good, yummy benefits from it. Okay, so the very last part that you're going to do for this is put your water. And anywhere between 6 to 12 cups, really. It's just going to depend on how much stuff you actually have in your pot. So you're just going to fill it until everything is pretty much covered, or at least until there is, 2 to 3 inches, from the top, because like I said, you don't want it to boil over, because that will just be a mess. Okay. So, and then you put it on the stove, you cover it to make sure it has a lid, and then you cover it, and you let it heat up to real hot, so you get it boiling, and then once it starts to boil, take the lid off, stir it around, and then turn the heat down to low, and then put the lid back on, and then let it sit there and simmer for at least an hour minimum. The longer you do it, the more nutrients are going to actually, pull out. So that completely is going to be based on your time. If you have a lot of time that day, then let it sit there for a little bit longer. If you're kind of crunched on time and you're like, I want to get this over and done with, then only wait an hour. That's totally up to you. After you've waited that time, take it off the heat, let it cool down, because you do not want to be messing with this, touching it and, transferring it and squeezing it out while everything is really, really hot. And then once it's cooled down, you are then going to strain out all of the scraps and then put them in a bowl, and we usually take another bowl on top of it, and you just squish it down and squish all of the extra liquid that was soaked into the scraps, or the stuff that's actually in there, and then put that into your broth. And that is how you make this gut healing veggie broth. I love it. And like I said, you can use it in soups. You can use it as, like if you're making like your rice or anything, you can use that in place of water. Actually, sorry. Totally forgot about this. Kombu. Seaweed. Show you this. You put that in there as well. And you only have to put like one, big leaf or whatnot. This just fell off. Make sure you put that in there as well. They are super, super good for you. They are filled with nutrients. Okay, so make sure that you put your seaweed in it. So either kombu, you can put wakame in there. You could put nori in there, but nori would have much more of a seafoody flavor. Kombu and wakame do not. You could also put miso in there, like a miso paste, but I wouldn't put the miso paste in it until the very end when you're cooling. And that's only because miso is full of like live cultures, and so you don't want to kill them, right? You're not trying to kill the cultures off before, you even drink it. So then back to what I was saying of how you can use it. So you can use it in place of water when you're making your grains. You can also use it as your base for soups. Or you could just drink it straight up, as a broth, warm it up, and then put it in your mug and drink it. That's usually how I drink it, because I usually find the flavor really good. But if you're someone who, isn't used to, this type of flavor profile, at least not yet, then it might kind of it just might not be your preferred taste yet. So, you have to build yourself up to it. Yeah, okay, that is it. I promise I did not forget anything. I didn't. I had the seaweed sitting there. I just forgot to put it in there. So that is how I make my gut healing broth. If you have any questions about it, please leave them below. Yeah, well, I hope that you enjoy. All right, bye.